I'm Hugh Hewitt. Thank you for joining me. I'm back from vacation, and boy, what a couple of weeks it's been. Before I go to all the other news, I want to begin with our special guest from Israel. Amit Segal is the senior analyst with Channel 12 in Israel. I like to say he's a combination of reporter and analyst and anchor. I believe the anchor is Meet the Press in Israel. He's sort of like analyst and Meet the Press in Israel. Amit, welcome to the Hugh. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Hugh. Thank you very much from Jerusalem.
Well, I would like to begin with a very important question. Does anyone worry at all about any of Iran's nefarious allies, China, Russia, North Korea, coming to the aid of Iran at this point?
As far as I know, because there were many rumors, as far as I know, most of it is the rest is premature. I don't think it's happening, and the assumption in Israel and in the US is that it's off the table.
That's great news. Yeah. China got involved in the North Korean campaign when the Norks were getting close to being knocked out. North Koreans showed up in Russia last year. Have you talked to anyone about it? Has it come on as a potential red flare?
Not to North Koreans so far, but from what I see now, Iran is in such a desperate situation that even Hezbollah, its proxy, sent an email announcing that it would not join defending the Ayatollah regime. So does Russia. Today, an expert in Russia said that the relationship between Russia and Iran is not as close for Putin to actually get involved. So right now, it's not a serious option.
All right. Amit, I have listened twice to your conversation with Dan Senor this morning. It dropped in the morning in the United States. I've read your column in the Free Press. I read your It's Noon in Israel every day. So I've got a lot of background of what you were thinking in the last 24 hours, but our audience doesn't. So I'd like you to explain, if you could, sort of the order of battle in the way that the IDF rolled this out, beginning with the attack on the air defenses, then the missiles, then the attack on the military leadership, then the nuclear program, then the scientists. It all kind of happened at once, didn't it?
It's one of the most amazing coordinated attacks in the history of warfare. It's a combination of the pager attack of Israel, the drone attack by Ukraine last week, and the sort of surprise attack made by many countries in the past, all combined simultaneously by 100 planes, covert Mossad agents, hidden bombs, etc. Right now, as far as I analyze the situation, I would say, and sorry for using a soccer metaphor because it's an American audience, but I'm not very strong with football or baseball, that we are beating Iran 5-0 in the 92nd minute, and all their players have left. All their players have left is to try to injure our players. I mean, they can no longer win the game. They can no longer win the match. They can just injure ours. That's what they are doing in targeting civilians in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Haifa.
Well, the extent of my football knowledge, European style, is Ted Lasso. But doesn't that mean that you could send in your own people and injure their players by blowing up Karg Island or the port?
Yes, we can do it. And that's why I think Iranians are in deep troubles, and I'll explain why. All they can do is to fire ballistic missiles towards the Israeli strategic sites and towards civilians. But they have limited scope, limited number of ballistic missiles. They have had 2,000 when it began. Now they have, let's say, 1,500 ballistic missiles. The pace was 75 a night, and it goes down every single night because the Israeli Air Force attacks the launchers and the ballistic missiles on a daily basis. So they have something like 2 weeks before they are run out of ballistic missiles. While Israelis can attack their oil and gas industry, eliminate 85% of the Iranian economy, eliminate Ayatollah Khamenei, the leader of the Muslim Republic of Iran, attack the besieged and the army, many things that we haven't touched so far. So, in my opinion, it's not that they are going to have it's not going to be a very smart idea to keep going it.
Before I go to the nuclear program, I want to ask you about cyber attacks. Iran was supposed to be pretty good at that. Have you been alerted to any cyber attacks that have been successful on Israeli infrastructure? And do you know if Israel has done anything in that domain of war to Iran?
Yes. So first of all, the digital war with Iran began on October 7th, 2023. What we have seen since the beginning of the war in Gaza is an Iranian effort, an effort of the Iranian axis aimed at Israeli infrastructure. Most of it failed, but it gave Israelis time to actually practice and improve. Whereas what we see now in terms of the Israeli digital war is something that we've never seen before. We do see things that haven't been done in the past. I'll give you just one example. There are ships in the Hormuz Bay that actually report interference, and it is not done
Ah,
by Iranians.
I see. I haven't seen any reports on that yet. There is a report out of Iran that they have downed an F-35. I am skeptical. Have you heard that report? Do you believe it?
It's the fourth report about the fall of F-35. It's not. It's definitely not the case. I just want to give you one example of the surprise attack Israel has made. Israel summoned, but using cyber attacks, Israel summoned the 20 most senior commanders of the Iranian Air Force to a secret meeting held in a specific headquarters in Tehran, and then Israel attacked the place and killed them simultaneously. This was used by Israeli superiority in both digital things, intelligence, etc. So it might give you an answer. All they have got is all they have left with is the fake news about the F-35.
Now, Amit Segal, I'm not sure you want to kill Khamenei because if he's running the war, he's the worst war leader ever. Do you suppose he is as infirm as one would expect an 86-year-old dictator to be, and perhaps not as well informed by his sycophants as one leader, a war leader, would want to be by his generals and his military commanders?
Yeah, I'll give you one quote made by a top Israeli intelligence officer only an hour ago. I reported about it, and he said as follows. He said that Ayatollah Khamenei is weak and in a difficult mental state, and he said that everyone who worked with him is dead and he's having a hard time with the replacements. So it's
Huh.
exactly, you touched the point. The point is Ayatollah Khamenei, who was well known for his negotiation skills, made a fatal error that no one in the Middle East understands and understood in real time. You come to negotiate with President Trump, whom you had tried to assassinate just a few months before, and you do not compromise? Where are the famous negotiation Iranian skills that we have known from the bazaar in Tehran? They gave
Yeah.
Trump the ultimate power to actually decide to let Israel attack Iran. So now, here's the question. Is the symbolic achievement better than letting this weak, stubborn, old leader of Iran to keep managing very badly the situation in Iran?
And I think it is. I don't know you can do better. I don't know how you could do worse with someone who had at least vigor, some kind of energy level. Amit Segal, I want to
Yes.
touch on a technical thing. You just referred to the war beginning on 10/7. I call it the 10/7 long war in Israel. Some people in the United States are referring it to the Israel-Iran war. If anything, if it's other than 10/7 war, it's the Iran-Israel war because Iran struck first in April. Am I correct? April of 2024 and a second time in October of 2024. Is that how do you refer
Exactly.
to it for shorthand?
So October 7th actually was the first part of the big plan made by Iran to destroy Israel, both from ground invasion from Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and then rockets, and then Iran with nuclear bomb. Now, here's the thing. Israel never done what it did on June 13, 3 days ago,
Oh,
unless
Amit, hold on for a
October
second. That
7th.
music means I got to go to a break and come right back. I'm coming right back with Amit
No
Segal
problem.
of Channel 12 in Israel. Stand by, America. I'm so glad to be back with you after 2 weeks. Nothing at all happened in those 2 weeks. But I'm back in time for the war, and I'm very glad to be here. Thanks to Dwayne, Kurt Schlichter, Mark Davis, and Ed Morrissey for sitting in for me in the last 2 weeks. Thanks to all of you for your nice messages. Thanks especially to the Hillsdale friends and family that took me along on their cruise. I gave 2 lectures, but I really got to listen to Christopher Caldwell. I got to listen to President Klaus of Czechoslovakia, of the Czech Republic, formerly president of the current Czech Republic. I got to listen to John O'Sullivan. Of course, Dr. Oren gave 3 talks, and 400 plus wonderful people along on this cruise and land visit. Then the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I spent a couple of days in London as the war broke out. Traveled home yesterday, and you see we have the new studio up and running, and that's great. I am all about this war. I know that the Army parade was a big deal. I'm glad it went off well. Our salute to the Army. 250 years ago, they made the establishment of our republic possible. I think they were entitled to their parade. I know that millions of people gathered for the, I think, moronic No Kings rally, because, of course, we don't have a king. We have a president who was elected overwhelmingly in November, and the people who are out at the No Kings rally are demonstrating a kind of illiteracy, meaning they don't read books about history, and therefore I think, God love them, they have the perfect right to protest. Not going to take advice for those people in a critical situation. Also want to say that the assassin of the tragically murdered 2 people in Minnesota, one a state legislator and her husband, another 2 wounded, has been captured today. He is alive. He is apparently a right-wing nut, allegedly an anti-abortion activist, but I think we're going to discover he's just a nut and that his world was collapsing. But I covered it last night with Trey Gowdy on Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy, and I said what Trey said. Political violence from the left, from the right, from anywhere is never acceptable in America. I am reminded of the period of time from 1968 to 1972. Hope we don't go that way. There's no need to go that way. America has 2 very healthy, established parties, although the Democratic Party is fundamentally shifting to the left into a socialist mode. And I'm not sure that they're going to survive as a party. They might split because there are too many normal people who aren't comfortable being Republicans. They just grew up Democrats. But they also take a look at, for example, the Democratic Socialist running in New York, or they take a look at Tim Walz or Vice President Harris, and they say, that's not really me. I'm not really into that, and they're going to move on. I want to thank the entire audience as we stand by for a couple of additional guests from Israel, but they're in and out of bunkers as it's nighttime there, and Iran is mounting another ballistic missile attack, which means that the IDF, the Air Force, will respond again. And I think now that they're just running down a target list, as Amit Segal confirmed, there are a lot of targets left. And if they get to Karg Island and to one port, they got one big port. If Israel gets mad at the deaths of civilians, which now are about 30 civilians have been murdered by Iran because they aim at civilians, if Israel gets mad, they can destroy the economy of Iran for decades to come. I'm not even ruling out that the Iranian army, which is separate from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Quds Force, which is part of the IRGC, the army might step in at this point because it's such a devastating loss for Iran. They've turned out to be paper mache. I've mentioned on this program before that Alexander Solzhenitsyn, in his epic memoir, The Oak and the Calf, said, what if the regime is made of paper mache? What if it turns out you can poke a stick through it? Now, the Iranian regime is not made of paper mache. They will gun down opponents in the street. They are brutal, theological fanatics, which is why they can't have a nuclear weapon. And that's why this brilliantly orchestrated attack will cement Donald Trump's place in American history and in world history as the leader who gave the green light. I am hoping President Trump dispatches our B-2s from Diego Garcia with the only mission of hitting the 3 or 4 major nuclear facilities in which enrichment. Now, there are 3 steps in the bomb process. Enriching uranium to weapons grade. Then you've got to send it into a cylinder kind of thing and churn it around and get it to a particular kind of uranium that you can put then into phase 3, which is weaponization. Got to get it into a warhead. No sign of weaponization that we've seen, but the Israelis received enough intel that they decided they could not risk it, and they've destroyed a lot of that. They've also destroyed hundreds of ballistic missiles on the ground before they could rain down on Israel. They've destroyed hundreds of launchers. They've taken out scores, if not hundreds, of senior military and intelligence leadership. They are not attacking political leadership. I hope they don't attack Khamenei because he's so bad at this. But I'll continue to give you updates as they arrive. Angel Tree, it's the final week of our effort to raise money to send kids to camp. While I was away, many of you wrote checks. Thank you. We would still love to have you involved because we've got a way to go. Here's Betsy Wright of Angel Tree.
We have so many kids out there impacted by incarceration, and we have so many willing camp partners across the United States. We have camp partners in 49 states this year, and that's the first time we've been in that many states. So we're hoping to get so many kids to camp this summer. And your listeners have been so faithful over the years to give, and we couldn't do it without your partnership and those faithful listeners who give every year. And maybe this year we'll have a lot of new first-time donors for this, and we know that God will bless that gift and multiply that gift.
Yeah, if you're thinking about being a first-time donor, thank you. There's a banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. You really cannot miss it, Angel Tree. Or if you'd like the snail mail number, it's 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. That's the old school. Call them up, make a donation. $200 sends another kid to camp this summer. And I greatly appreciate the work that Dwayne, Kurt, Mark, and Ed did. They rallied a lot of you in the face of Mike Gallagher's guerrilla campaign to demoralize them. He didn't succeed. Let me also tell you about BestHotGrill.com. It was Father's Day yesterday. I had a wonderful Father's Day. Wonderful, absolutely great Father's Day because I got my new studio and I learned how to work it. And I'm telling you, the only way it could have been better if I grilled up. BestHotGrill.com. I've got one. Didn't use it yesterday, raining. But BestHotGrill.com. If you want to give your father the gift that you forgot, then head over to BestHotGrill.com and pick out your favorite model of the Solaire infrared grill. Goes to 1,000 degrees in 3 minutes, cannot be beat. It's American made. You can try it before you buy it. Perfect for dads, perfect for grads, perfect for those of you who forgot either a grad or a dad and you're feeling bad about it. Go over to BestHotGrill.com right now. Find and use it. And you'll be grateful, as will the dad or the grad that receives it. Longtime friend of the program, he joins us today from Israel. Dr. Oren, I spent all of 1979 with Richard Nixon in San Clemente watching the Shah fall, watching Khomeini come. This is the first time since then I felt like the Iranian regime is really on its heels. How do you assess the situation?
Well, certainly it's the first time that Tehran has felt the wrath of any country since the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s. Israel, and generally specifically, has been under Iranian proxy fire almost uninterruptedly for well over 2 decades now. But no one has ever fired a single shot at Iran. The United States, American bases were fired at almost 200 times during the Biden administration. No one ever took a shot back at Iran. The Houthis stopped international shipping through the Mandab Strait. No one ever fired a shot at Iran. This is the first time people actually taking a shot at Iran, and the people from Tehran are fleeing the city in the tens and hundreds of thousands. They're not used to that. So the war has come back to Iran. Finally, there's a great justice in this. Call it karma.
Now, Dr. Oren, I want to know, do you have any worries about the intervention on behalf of Iran of someone else in the alliance of tyrants, whether it's Putin or North Korea or China? We know China went into the North Korean War in 1950. We know the North Koreans are now in Russia versus Ukraine. Any worries on your end about that?
Very few. I think Russia's got its hands full. And China's not yet a Middle Eastern power. It's not like the Chinese have what the Soviets had in 1967, 1973, a blue water fleet that went eyeball to eyeball with the American fleet and threatened to rain missiles down on Israel. They threatened to rain missiles down on Israel even in 1956, Mr. Molotov. So that's not happening right now. I don't see anybody coming to Iran's help right now, to Iran's aid. Iran is profoundly isolated. And I don't even think the Shiite Arabs in the Middle East feel particularly strongly about helping Iran at this point. Certainly, Iran never helped them.
Now, Ambassador Oren, I don't want you to kill Khamenei because I think he's the worst leader of the evil countries. He's old, he's infirm, he's made bad choice after bad choice for 30 plus years. What do you think is going to happen vis-a-vis the regime?
So the regime is in a very bad situation. Let me tell you what's happening in Israel tonight. Okay, so you see, I'm sitting in front of this computer. I'm not running into the shelter, which is next door. And what has happened is that Israel has systematically degraded Iran's missile arsenals and missile launching capabilities, which were legion. And we can see every night fewer and fewer missiles are targeting Israel. People are still getting killed, as you mentioned earlier in your show, and wounded, but with fewer and fewer missiles. So we went from 200 to 100 to 60 to 40 till tonight, 10 into Haifa. The night is young, certainly, but fewer and fewer. And that means with the Israeli Air Force enjoying complete impunity in the skies of Iran, Iran is whatever metaphor you want. It's on the ropes, it's down the mat, it's on the mat, and it isn't getting up. Unless it has some horrible, doomsday weapon up its sleeve, which I doubt it has, it's finished. It's game over. They tried to engage us in a war of attrition to see which country, Israel or Iran, would cry uncle first, and that the uncle we were going to go to was Uncle Sam, because somewhere along the line this is going to end up at the negotiating table. And the question is, what will be the nature of those negotiations? And if we have our way, we continue to, if the United States continues to give us a green light and the wherewithal to press this war to its conclusion, then the Iranians will not come back to the negotiating table. They will crawl back to the negotiating table, and they will agree.
Dr. Oren, you're a
dismantle.
historian. You're a historian. You write books about all this. How do you rate Israel's achievement vis-a-vis the 6-Day War, the comeback in '73, and Tebi, the pagers, and the other attacks, the Hezbollah capitulation? How does this rate in terms of flexing of the Jewish state's muscle?
Bigger. Iran is much more distant than Egypt, Syria, and Jordan were in 1967, still are. Iran is a country that's vastly bigger. Its population, 80 million people. It is a nuclear threshold state. It is a state that controls huge swaths of the Middle East before the last year and a half. Bigger, but also we have to judge the wars by their outcome. I wrote a book called The 6 Days of War, now available at famously reduced prices. And the subtitle was June 67, the Making of the Modern Middle East. And the thesis was you can't understand the Middle East, certainly in the 20th century, without understanding the 6-Day War. You will not be able to understand the Middle East in the 21st century without understanding this war. Because if the war turns out as I ardently hope it will, and the United States diplomacy, President Trump's diplomacy, will see it through. We'll have peace with Egypt and peace with Jordan, with Lebanon, peace with Syria, peace with Saudi Arabia, maybe type of arrangement with Palestinians, and maybe even peace with Iran.
Dr. Oren, Bibi Netanyahu has been in a face-off with Ayatollah Khamenei for more than 30 years. How do you assess his performance over the last 96 hours?
Obviously an A+. But I also have to look at him not as a contemporary, but as an historian looking back 50 to 100 years from now. And Netanyahu has had his share of controversies. The government almost fell the night before the war over the question of ultra-Orthodox service in the IDF. And the minute there's a ceasefire, these issues will come back to the fore, and Israel will be divided again. And should we go to elections, Mr. Netanyahu will have his hands full. I always say to you, it's premature to eulogize him politically. He will still have a strong showing, but I think history won't remember the ultra-Orthodox service issue. It'll remember this. And I think that at West Point and at military academies around the world, they'll be studying this war for generations to come. And
my
his
second
name
question, how do you assess President Trump's what I call masterful ambiguity?
It's great. I go on the Israeli media many times during the day, and the first question is Trump in favor of this? Is he against it? Does he want a deal? Is he giving us a green light? Will he get involved? Will he want to go? And I always take a deep breath and I say, the answer to all those questions is yes. And they don't necessarily like that answer. The answer is, but the answer is yes. And I'm right about that. And it is ambiguity. It keeps everybody on their toes, keeps everyone, guessing and going crazy. But the bottom line, I have certain assumptions about what the president's universe looks like. He likes winners. Will you agree with me, Hugh? He likes winners.
I do.
Right now we are winners supreme, and he wants to be associated with the winners, and he also wants to be a peacemaker.
Now Fordo,
and
Fordo is out there.
That he, I will say,
can you guys take out Fordo, or do we need to do that?
I don't know. I get this gut feeling that we can do it, not in the same way that America does it, but there's more ways to crack that nut. It can't be hermetically sealed. It's got to have air shafts. It's got to have entrances. There's got to be some way we can get in there. And I think with all of our ingenuity, keep in mind, we got Mr. Nasrallah in Beirut, and he was hiding beneath 60 feet of solid concrete. So we know how to get in. We can shave things off if we have time. It's all about time. And if we're given time and we can bring Iran to its knees and maybe even affect a regime change in Iran, then Mr. Trump will not only win one Nobel Prize, he'll win a shelf load of Nobel Prizes by bringing peace to Israel and all of our neighbors. It'll be a game changer. The Middle East that you and I knew our whole lives will be completely changed.
And it will change the arc of history. It already has. Dr. Michael Oren, I hope we talk to you. Stay safe. I hope your family is safe. I know that more than 30 Israelis have given their lives in this war, in this latest round of the war with Iran. So I know it's serious times in Israel, but thank you for joining me today. I'm joined now by the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee and the third-ranking Republican in the United States Senate, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Afternoon, Senator. Thank you for joining me.
Good afternoon, Hugh. It's good to be back on with you. Welcome back from your 2 weeks of luxury cruise in the
I was working the whole time, Senator. Senator, I want to ask you about whether or not you would advise Donald Trump to use our B-2s to strike the Fordo facility, which is the last facility that Iran has of any consequence in this war.
Well, Hugh, first, let me address the fact that I think President Trump has been pitch perfect on this campaign going back to Thursday, really going back 10 years. And it's been clear from the beginning that we cannot allow to have Iran get a nuclear weapon, which means they cannot be allowed to get enrichment capability. Also, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the IDF, and Mossad have once again acted with bravery and audacity, and we should commend them as well. The premise of the question is that we have to close all of these key nuclear sites, most notably the enrichment sites at Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo. It's not entirely clear to me that Israel has yet succeeded in destroying Natanz. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu said that it may be the case. They're waiting for battle damage assessment. They've destroyed some key sites, and Isfahan as well. Fordo, though, as you ask, is really the key terrain because it's the biggest single site, and it's buried deep under a mountain. It's kind of been the tell all along that Iran plans to build nuclear weapons. Otherwise, why are they enriching uranium beyond civilian purposes at a deep fortified underground bunker? And it would be, as you imply, Hugh, a disappointing and inconclusive outcome to this campaign if Iran maintained any enrichment capability, especially at Fordo. Now, how it gets closed is in some ways up to Iran. We do have the capability with our long-range heavy bombers and 30,000-pound bunker-busting munitions to close it. The Supreme Leader could say that he's ready to sue for peace. And the table stakes, I would say, of new negotiations would be that they agree to dismantle their enrichment capability, and we close Fordo that way. And also, Hugh, I have to think you have to assume, after what we saw last Thursday night with Mossad agents in Iran, with drone parts already smuggled into Iran and being manufactured there. Iran or Israel has always had a few tricks up its sleeve, and it may have more tricks up its sleeve. So I don't think Iran should believe that Israel has played its final cards here yet.
I have asked already Dr. Oren, the former ambassador from Israel to the United States. I've asked Amit Segal, the equivalent of their Brett Baer in Israel. Are they afraid of China or Russia or North Korea coming to the aid of Iran? That's the alliance of tyrants. Are you afraid of that, Senator Cotton?
I think we need to be mindful that those countries might come to Iran's aid, but I've never suspected it was likely, Hugh. Look what happened last fall with Syria. Bashar al-Assad was a longtime client of both Iran and Russia. And when rebels began rampaging across the country, he appealed to both Iran and Russia for aid, and both of them gave him the cold shoulder. Not that they didn't want to, but they were unable to. In fact, all Russia offered him was a one-way flight to Moscow as his regime crumbled around him after 5 decades of tyranny. Likewise, we have reports now that Iran has appealed to Vladimir Putin as well, and Putin has told the supreme leader, in effect, it looks like you're in a pretty bad way, and you might want to sue for peace there, bud.
Yeah,
and that's,
I've read that.
That's, Hugh, that's just Russia and China. I mean, you had some people, some critics of President Trump on the right saying that, this is going to lead to World War III because Iran was deeply integrated with the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. I mean, really, the idea that Brazil, of all countries, or South Africa was going to come to Iran's aid if Israel began to pound Iran's air defenses and nuclear sites, it's just far-fetched. And right now, I think you see Iran on an island without allies that are willing to stick their neck out for the world's worst state sponsor of terrorism.
It seems to me, Senator, that President Trump has practiced what I call masterful ambiguity. Lord Salisbury and before him Lord John Spencer called masterful inactivity. This is masterful ambiguity. He has told Iran, and again, he's been very clear with Iran, no nukes, but he's really been ambiguous about what's going on. And I think it's been brilliant. What do you think?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think he's put a foot wrong since last week, and especially, but really over the last 10 years, he's been perfectly consistent. There have been voices around him, even in his own administration, who have been inconsistent, who have opposed his own policy. But President Trump has been consistent for 10 years. Iran can not have a nuclear weapon, which means they cannot have enrichment capability. And that as he said, he gave Iran chance after chance to try to strike a deal. And they were stubborn, and they refused to, and they were about to get hit harder than they could have ever imagined. And I think 5 days on from him saying that, that's exactly what we're seeing play out.
Last question, Senator. I have a Marine Corps friend who has reminded me time and time again, civilians like me never think about second-order consequences. This, if the regime falls or if their oil exports are curtailed, China is hurt worst of all. Do you expect anything rash from China as a consequence of this?
Again, no, I think China's main interest, as you alluded to from the Middle East, Hugh, is getting continued uninterrupted supply of inexpensive oil. So if anything, I think China might pressure Iran not to do something like, say, put mines in the Strait of Hormuz, through which so much oil from the Persian Gulf passes. But again, we've seen for the last 5 days passivity from Iran's so-called friends in the face of a brilliantly executed Israeli campaign.
Well, Senator Cotton, thank you for joining me. I saw you with Margaret Brennan yesterday, and I appreciate the clarity with which you answered her questions, which were occasionally obtuse, but you did a good job of bringing sweet reason to CBS. Thank you, Senator. Talk to you again at earliest convenience. I want to remind everyone that you can watch on the Salem News Channel round the clock every major announcement, I think we broadcast throughout from the beginning of the war as much as we possibly can live, and you want to keep it tuned to the Salem News Channel. Now, also want to tell you that I've been gone for 2 weeks. I'm aware of everything that went on in L.A., everything that went on at No Tyrants. I'm aware of the assassinations in Minnesota. It's just that this war between Israel and Iran is a world history-changing moment. and I'm going to stay focused on it a lot this week. Especially want to welcome our listeners on 1590 WPSL on Port St. Lucia in Florida. It is the talk of the Treasure Coast, and we are very happy to welcome you to our legion of affiliates on the radio. If you're listening on the radio, thank you for being with us all these many years, whether you've been here one day or for 25 come July 10. I do want to check the markets. We have a sponsor, American Federal. They buy and sell gold. They buy and sell your gold. Nick Rovich and his team can be reached at 800-221-7694. 800-221-7694. The Dow, just before the close, is up 0.68 points. The S&P is up 0.86 points. The NASDAQ has boomed along today on Monday. Even though the war got started on Friday and people were worried for a while, NASDAQ's up 1.41%. Gold is down 1.39%. But by down, it means at $3,404 an ounce, because it skyrocketed on Friday because people didn't know how this was going to go. They weren't really sure how was this going to actually turn out. And it's turning out very, very well for the West. And therefore, gold has dropped a little bit. Oil, though, is at $71.36. Now, whether you're a new listener in Port St. Lucia or whether you are an old listener on KRLA in LA, you buy gold not because you're trying to trade gold and make money immediately. You buy it and you keep it for a rainy day, and when that rainy day comes, you sell it. Now, you may never sell it. I hope I never have to sell it. I hope my kids inherit it and step up the basis and they can do whatever they want with it. But if you want to buy gold for that purpose, Nick Rovich and his team at AmericanFederal.com got 43, soon to be 44 years in experience in buying and selling gold. If you have to sell your gold, do it with Nick Rovich. Either way, there'll be a commission. The more you buy or the more you sell, the less the commission. But do it with AmericanFederal.com. Time for my relief factor, but I'm going to show it to you. I don't have anything to drink it with. I forgot to bring. I had to go out to the little refrigerator in the next room. Got my relief factor right here. Took it with me all over Europe, Portugal, Spain, France, the Hillsdale cruise. Walked 19 miles in London over 2 days with the fetching Mrs. Hewitt and feel great. Worst part was the airline. I'm not going to rag on them. Their seats were broken. But relief factor is, and I did my 4 this morning, and relief factor works. I take it every single day. And I usually take it on the air. I'll take it on the air in the second hour when I have a can of water with me here. But I want to tell you, icarian curcumin, resveratrol, and omega, they work no matter what your exercise regime is, whether you're trundling or running, working out in the gym, a swimmer, volleyball player, whatever it is. Minor aches and pains go away when you take your relief factor. So give it a try. All you have to do is call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, or go to their website and look for the starter pack at $19.95, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. I'll be right back. I'm not sure who my next guest is. It might be Amit Segal, part 2. It might be Nadav Eyal. Stay tuned and you'll find out. This is part 2 of my interview with Amit Segal, taped just before the program went live today, because Mr. Segal is one of Israel's top analysts. He is on Channel 12. He writes It's Noon in Israel, a newsletter you ought to get every single day. He's often a guest with Dan Senor on the indispensable Call Me Back podcast. And he wrote a great piece in the Free Press over the weekend on the 30-year conflict between Bibi Netanyahu and the supreme leader, in quotation marks, of Iran, because he's not leading much right now except disaster, Ayatollah Khamenei. Amit, when we went to break in the first hour, you were saying the war began on 10/7. How are you going to refer to it? How are Israelis going to refer to it?
So I think the most crucial day was April 14, 2024. Iran retaliated or tried to revenge the killing of one of its senior officers in Damascus. And then it made the devastating mistake of attacking Israel directly. The Iranian policy so far was to actually use proxies, not to have Israeli blood on their hands. But when they were dragged to attack Israel, what they did was, actually they did 2 things. One was to actually break the barrier of fear that actually threatened Israel for many, many years because Israel saw that it can actually handle a direct attack of ballistic missiles from Iran. And the second thing is the recognizing the fact that this showdown, this face-off is actually inevitable. And that was the reason why the clock started ticking on April 14, 2024.
Now, Amit, I heard you say to Dan Senor this morning that the prime minister in his previous iterations of being prime minister had 4 times gone to the Israeli military and said, I want to attack Iran. And 4 times they said, we can't do it. We don't want to do it. This time they green lighted it. And of course, President Trump either explicitly or implicitly green lighted it. What changed?
So what changed was the fact that prior to the war, Iran used Hezbollah and Hamas as its human shields. AKA, if Israel was to attack the Iranian nuclear program, Hezbollah and Hamas would fire at Israel dozens, thousands of rockets, thus threatening the very existence of the country. But following the horrible massacre of October 7th, Israel had to eliminate Hamas, later on to eliminate Hezbollah as a threat. And now Iran is exposed. Iran is naked. That is the dramatic thing that has changed.
What's also changed is that they apparently can't guide their missiles very well, their ballistic missiles. To your knowledge, has Dimona, the very sensitive site at Dimona, been targeted and they missed? Or do they just not have the capacity to target anything within 5 miles?
They have the capacity. What their warfare goes as follows. They know that Israel has the most sophisticated anti-missile system on earth, combined with the American protection and the British and even the French all together. So in order to overcome it, they must outnumber it. They must fire 50, 60 ballistic missiles aimed at a specific point. Now, that was the ability at the beginning of the war, but then they didn't want to actually escalate more than they could. Now, I'm not sure they have the ability. You see, for instance, they began with 175 ballistic missiles on the first night of the war. 2 nights ago, it was 100. Last night, it was 75. And tonight, it's, I think, 3 so far. Israel is destroying the launchers and the ballistic missiles in Tehran. It just raids it. Thanks to the full superiority of the Air Force, they just hunt down each and every ballistic missile and each and every ballistic launcher they see. Now, it doesn't mean that the Iranians don't have the capacity, but their capacity and their ability is decreasing any moment.
So, I mean, I also have told the audience before, weaponization to get to a nuclear bomb requires 3 phases: enrichment, conversion, weaponization. I know that the enrichment facilities, 2 out of the 3 have been destroyed, but Fordo has not been, to my knowledge. Do you have an update on that?
Right. Okay, so Fordo is very important in terms of the enrichment. If you destroy Fordo, you actually eliminate the enrichment industry in Iran that have been built for the last 25 years. Now, Fordo is very isolated. It's under the ground, 90 meters under the ground. So there are 2 options. One, the quickest one and the most efficient is to have an American B-2 taking a tour in Iran and and firing 2 bombs, thus eliminating the site of Fordo. The second, which is more difficult and more complicated, is to do it with Israeli forces. I don't want to go into details because it's a matter of national security. But Israel has the ability to actually damage the site in Fordo, if not 100%, so I would say 50, 60, 70%.
I mean, I also heard you tell Dan Senor this morning that the Israeli war plan is in day 7 or 8 now, even though it's only been 3 days. Is that accelerating? Are they going to run out of targets?
Not really, because Iran is a huge country, 10 times the size of Israel, 10 times the size of New Jersey, for instance. It's more Texas than Rhode Island. So there are many targets, but as far as it concerns to the ballistic missile program and the nuclear program, so yes, there is a limited number of targets. I guess that in a week from now, Israel can actually finish the job.
Now, Amit, long ago there was an Indian viceroy by the British Raj by the name of Lord John Spencer, and he practiced a policy called masterly inactivity. Lord Salisbury picked it up. He used it for 20 years in the late 19th century. I think Donald Trump is practicing masterful ambiguity and has been marvelous in doing so, to use a word that you used to Dan Senor. How do most Israelis view President Trump's conduct over the last week?
I think they are very happy he took the right decision. People in Israel were very worried a few weeks ago when it seemed as if he's tired of, not of Israel, because he's still a staunch supporter of Israel, but tired of trying to actually connect Israel to the Middle East. So he had a tour in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates. Israel did not exist there. But now, when we see how he green-lighted the Israeli attack, and we get hints of even deeper involvement of the U.S. in this war, I think the level of support for President Trump in Israel is higher than ever. I would say that even prior to this, if Israel was to be the 51st state of the United States, it was something between Alabama and Montana, a very, very solid red state in the United States.
So, Amit, is there any way for Iran to surrender, to cry uncle, to raise a white flag? Could they blow up Fordo themselves, and that would be a signal to the Israelis that they're out of the game of trying to build the bomb to destroy the Jewish state?
I don't think they're going to do this directly, but here is the thing. Here is the dilemma of the Ayatollah. On one hand, he wants a Muslim Shia Persian empire. And on the other hand, he wants to preserve his regime. Now, here's the problem for him. The nuclear bomb was aimed at creating an empire, but making the regime survive as well. So now the US and Israel tell him, give up your dream of an empire in the Middle East. So give up your nuclear program. But if he gives up the nuclear program, it necessarily means that he's weaker at home, thus, under the risk of losing it. So what I think we are going to see is an Iranian offer of freezing the project for a few years and trying to actually freeze it without it being frozen to death. If you ask me what is going to happen, it can happen, but then the regime would collapse in a few months.
Amit Segal, we're out of time. I just want to thank you for the Dan Senor interview, for your piece in the Free Press, which is marvelous, and for your daily newsletter. I hope more people go and find. I've posted it at HughHewitt.com. I'll do so again. It's noon in Israel.
Thank you.
Absolutely indispensable.
So
Amit Segal, I hope you come back.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you, Amit. I'm Hugh Hewitt, back after 2 weeks abroad with my friends from Hillsdale College. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. I'd encourage you, if you want to go on a cruise and you also want to mix in serious people and fun people, that was just a blast. Dr. Oren gave 3 lectures. Former president of the Czech Republic, President Klaus, gave 2 lectures. Christopher Caldwell gave 2 lectures. John O'Sullivan, the man who wrote The Pope, the Prime Minister, and the President, gave 2 lectures. It was really remarkable. Hillsdale is remarkable. All things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu. But I'm glad to be back. It's a combination of work and sightseeing, and I enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed a couple of days on our own in London with the Fetching Miss Hewitt. We hadn't been there in a few years, and we just walked the city again. It's always a blast. And I have my second phone with me now. Consumer Cellular. I made the switch. I got a second phone. Now, you might only want one phone. You can keep your number, keep all your contacts. You can transfer it right over. But you can have savings without sacrifice when you do that. If you're over 50, for example, you can have 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month. That is really, really really inexpensive. That's $30 each line. Unlimited data. But you might not need that. Not many people over 50 do if you're not in the news business. You might be able to get by with 5 gigs or 10 gigs. Talk to them. Call them at 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-441-4454. New customers get a $5 credit on the first 5 monthly invoices. Visit consumercellular.com/Hugh. Make the switch. Find yourself with all the service you could possibly want and save money at the same time. Also want to tell you that Relief Factor went with me on my trip, and I take it every day. I was supposed to take it in the first hour of the program today, but I didn't have my Trader Joe's water, so now I've got it. So now I've got my Relief Factor right here, and if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you see how easy that is? That's not hard. That's easy, and it's intended to be. And when you take it every day, you feel great. We can do 9 and 10 miles back to back, fly, 7-hour flight, not terrible, but the seat wasn't quite right. And so a little bit hinky, but got 4 miles in today. Feel great because of Relief Factor. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4RELIEF, or go to their website, find the starter pack, $19.95 at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Now, Dr. Michael Oren, ambassador of Israel to the United States for many, many years, regular guest on this program, joined me last hour. I taped an extra segment off air with him. I want to show that to you now. Dr. Michael Oren. I am back with Dr. Michael Oren from Israel. Dr. Oren, Bibi Netanyahu has been in a face-off with Ayatollah Khamenei for more than 30 years. How do you assess his performance over the last 96 hours?
Obviously an A+. But I also have to look at him not as a contemporary, but as an historian looking back 50 to 100 years from now. And Netanyahu has had his share of controversies. The government almost fell the night before the war over the question of ultra-Orthodox service in the IDF. And the minute there's a ceasefire, these issues will come back to the fore, and Israel will be divided again. And should we go to elections, Netanyahu will have his hands full. I always say to you, it's premature to eulogize him politically. He will still have a strong showing, but I think history won't remember the ultra-Orthodox service issue. It'll remember this. And I think that at West Point and at military academies around the world, they'll be studying this war for generations to come. And
my second question, how do you assess President Trump's what I call masterful ambiguity?
It's great. I go on the Israeli media many times during the day, and the first question is Trump in favor of this? Is he against it? Does he want a deal? Is he giving us a green light? Will he get involved? Will he want to go? And I always take a deep breath and I say, the answer to all those questions is yes. And they don't necessarily like that answer. The answer is, but the answer is yes. And I'm right about that. And it is ambiguity. It keeps everybody on their toes, keeps everyone, guessing and going crazy. But the bottom line, I have certain assumptions about what the president's universe looks like. He likes winners. Will you agree with me, Hugh? He likes winners.
I do.
Right now we are winners supreme, and he wants to be associated with the winners, and he also wants to be a peacemaker.
Now Fordo,
and
Fordo is out there.
That he can make. I will say.
Can you guys take out Fordo, or do we need to do that?
I don't know. I get this gut feeling that we can do it, not in the same way that America does it, but there's more ways to crack that nut. It can't be hermetically sealed. It's got to have air shafts. It's got to have entrances. There's got to be some way we can get in there. And I think with all of our ingenuity, keep in mind, we got Mr. Nasrallah in Beirut, and he was hiding beneath 60 feet of solid concrete. So we know how to get in. We can shave things off if we have time. It's all about time. And if we're given time and we can bring Iran to its knees and maybe even affect a regime change in Iran, then Mr. Trump will not only win one Nobel Prize, he'll win a shelf load of Nobel Prizes by bringing peace to Israel and all of our neighbors. It'll be a game changer. The Middle East that you and I knew our whole lives will be completely changed.
And it will change the arc of history. It already has. Dr. Michael Oren, I hope we talk to you. Stay safe. I hope your family is safe. I know that more than 30 Israelis have given their lives in this war, in this latest round of the war with Iran. So I know it's serious times in Israel, but thank you for joining me today. Now, I also want to go and borrow a clip from CNN This is Israel's president, head of state, not head of government, that's Prime Minister Netanyahu, but Israel's president, Herzog, joined Wolf Blitzer on CNN to make this statement, cut number 11.
President Herzog, CNN has learned that President Trump actually rejected an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Do you believe it would be a good idea to target the Iranian leader?
I don't want to refer to it as such. You know, I'm the head of state. I'm not the head of the executive branch. And I leave it as such to those who have taken or take all the decisions in this war. But I do want to say that one has to remember that under Ayatollah Khamenei, the worst terror infrastructure, I would say a satanic terror infrastructure that's spread all over the world with a clear intention. Why do they have terror cells in Latin America? Why do they kill civilians all over the world by terror activities from Lebanon to Argentina? Why did they do this throughout the years? And why, for heaven's sake, do they arm a little tribe in Yemen called the Houthis, 50,000 people in all, with ballistic missiles and cruise missiles of a major world power? Because they have an intention. And that is what we are trying to alert humankind and the world. If you want world stability, if you want this war to de-escalate, get the nukes out of Tehran's hands and move to peace, and not enable them to undermine peace, not enable them to derail any future of peace in the region. And they are doing that with this enormous war machine. Rather than feeding their people, they're spending all of it on havoc, terror, death, and nuclear developments.
That is the latest from CNN and President Herzog. Coming back with more from President Trump at the White House and at the G7 summit in Canada. Brand new studio constructed in my absence. I'm glad to be in it. I'm glad to welcome as well a brand new radio affiliate, 1590 WPSL, the Talk of the Treasure Coast. It's down in St. Port Lucia, and I think that's fabulous. I love Coven, Florida. Coach Urban Meyer's on the other side of the state. Hope he's listening here as well. The triple option gave me a lot of entertainment when I was abroad. Let me bring you up to speed as well. I get a lot of great sponsors, and I will once a day remind you of some of them, like andrewandtodd.com. They're in the lending business. They're a mortgage banker. Sierra Pacific Mortgage is a bank. andrewandtodd.com have been doing this with me for a decade. They gave me the loan, underwrote the loan when I moved back to the Beltway from California. They've done Dwayne's loan. They've done everyone's loan I know in Salem because they're so good at it. 888-888-1172. Wall Street Journal this morning reported that finally there are more sellers than buyers. 500,000 more sellers than buyers. But the buyers aren't buying. Still a slow thing. It went from being a buyer's market, went from being a seller's market where there were more buyers than there were sellers to being a buyer's market where there are a lot more sellers than there are buyers. And so prices are coming down, but interest rates are stubbornly stuck in the sixes. My message to you, Andrew Del Rey, Todd Abakian's message to you, buy the house, refinance when rates come down. Call them at 888-888-1172. Let them know your specifics, or you can visit their website, andrewandtodd.com. Answer a few questions. If you're down in St. Port Lucia, first time you've heard me talk about it, always better to go and get the preliminaries over, and then they'll come right back at you and they'll tell you how much you can afford, what you need to put down. If you're a veteran, you don't have to put anything down, of course. If you're a first-time home buyer, there are special programs for you. If you are a senior citizen, you want to get money out of your house, you go to andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. President Trump stopped on his way out of the White House today for a gaggle. Had this to say about Israel, cut number 1.
Will the U.S. continue to support the defense of Israel? Will the U.S. continue to support Israel in its defense?
We do, yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
So he supports Israel. Yeah, we do. Very blunt. He also got to the G7 in Canada, made another statement about the Iran-Israel war, cut number 2.
Have you heard any signals or seen any messages from intermediaries that Iran wishes to de-escalate the conflict?
Yeah.
What have you heard? What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
They need to surrender. They need to blow up Fordo, which is the enrichment. Now, the nuclear cycle runs mining, enrichment, fuel formation into pellets and things like that, and then weaponization. And they had everything they needed to get to a bomb. And Netanyahu went to Trump and he gave him 60 days, and Trump didn't say no. And if you listen to Israeli sources, the IDF didn't say no either. This has been a plan in the works for 20 years. One of the most amazing things I've heard is that Israel smuggled trucks into Iran in 2005 and 6, trucks that were used on the first night of the operation to disable a lot of the missiles. Now, that's old tech, 20 years ago. And, as Amit Segal said on this program today, Channel 12's principal correspondent in Israel, they used Cybertrick to get all of the Iranian Air Force and Missile Force senior leaders into one room right before the attack, blew them up. They've all gone to Judgment Day, and their Judgment Day is going to be harsh because they're terrorists. And they all didn't have a chance to say fire. The idea was Israel was always at risk of a massive fusillade of 1,000 missiles from Iran. And Hezbollah had 100,000 missiles. But what Sinwar did on 10/7, without knowing it, was bring down the Iranian regime, because I don't think they can survive this. Their people hate them. Between 70 and 90% of the people of Iran hate the regime. Now, the regime will not go easily. They will murder people. They have murdered people. But they're under such intense pressure right now as their population flees Tehran and as their military slowly is being degraded with great accuracy and a great concern for civilian life by the Israeli Defense Forces. Vic Mattis, deputy editor of the Washington Free Beacon. Very slow 2 news weeks when I was away. Don't you think, Vic?
Yes. Welcome back to work. I'm still on vacation in a way, Hugh, but yes, not much going on out there. So now Getting Hammered, as you know, is still on a little bit of a hiatus. And it's a good thing it's been a very quiet summer.
Well, I got to tell you, the Friday launch of the war by Israel against Iran, or it's really the third round of the Iran-Israel war, has had me completely fixated. Because, Vic, I wonder if you share this. I was in the business when communism fell in 1991. I was in the business for the Gulf War. I was in the business for 9/11 and the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. This is the next most important story of a 30-year news career, I think. What do you think?
I really hope you're right about this, because we keep on getting our hopes up. I remember the Green Revolution in 2008. This could be the moment, and Obama didn't back them up. And then there was another attempt to resist, after this woman who was murdered by the regime for not wearing the proper headscarf. But they're really going after them, and I mean Israel. And it's not just a surgical strike, one and done. They're taking out very important elements of the regime's infrastructure and its leaders. And from what I hear, they're getting scared. And you hear stories of, deputy chiefs of staff and national security advisors in Tehran trying to seek asylum in Russia. And I hope that is true, and that is a sign, and in which case Israel cannot let up now. It would be like getting up to the bunker and then knocking on the door and saying, "What, do you want to make a deal?" So I do think we're very close, and we have to keep up that pressure, because the people don't want to. This is not, you cannot compare this with other situations. Israel is not occupying Iran. These people are oppressed by their own government, and they want to break free, and they just need a little help from the outside. But you have all these movements, and they want to know, is this the moment where they can do this? And if they do, they'll be able to finally speak out, and they'll probably say, what took us so long? And the Democrats will say, well, we were with you all along.
Yeah, Vic, that's where I was going. I have a lot of Persian American friends, people who fled the revolution in 1979, got out with very little. They've made lives for themselves. Enormous Iranian American communities in Southern California, wonderful people, patriots. They'd love to see Iran free and prospering again. And I know they support President Trump, but there's a lot of sunk costs on the left. If you look at President Obama and the JCPOA and John Kerry and Ben Rhodes and all these people, there's a lot of sunk costs. What do you think they'll be able to say? We were wrong about Iran.
No, I mean, there's a story that I know from a professor of mine years ago at Georgetown, and his name was Professor Kaminsky, and he told the story about Georgetown students going over to Eastern Europe and going to Russia, and they were in Poland, and they talked to a guy who said he liked President Reagan, and they were not fans of President Reagan. They were students in the 80s, and they said, why? And they said he was the only one who was brave enough to say, to call the Soviet Union an evil empire. And those people will remember who stood up for them and who didn't. And, so when you see what's happening on the left, you see somebody like Ben Rhodes, who's clearly upset about Israel attacking Iran. No, they're not put in a good position this way. And I don't think they can sort of say, well, we support you now. It's rather embarrassing. And you can see why they're so heavily invested, Hugh, in wanting peace negotiations now and trying to prop up the Ayatollah and the mullahs. Because if they step down and all these people talk about how horrible their treatment is, they talk about what happens at Evin prison, they're going to be left with not much to say and defend.
Well, their whole worldview was wrong. Their whole worldview was that Iran was the equal of Saudi Arabia, the equal of a not quite superpower, that they ought to be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. If the JCPOA had been continued, if Trump had not upset Hillary Clinton in 2016, the JCPOA would today be allowing Iran to complete the nuclear cycle, and Israel would be on its own. How do you think President Trump is coming out of this?
He's coming out of it pretty good, because early on people were very confused. If you remember the day, it was Thursday before the attack happened, our time, he was giving some mixed messages and mixed signals. On the one hand, he said, Israel's probably going to maybe attack, but at the same time, we're really close to a deal. I hope they don't attack. Maybe they do attack. It could happen. We're very close. And people are like, well, he's not making any sense. Well, that's because he knew exactly what was going to happen. And he wasn't obviously going to spoil that news. And once it did, people are wondering, how much did he know? Did Israel give him a heads up? I think a reporter from the Wall Street Journal asked him that. And Trump said more than a heads up. He knew everything that was going to happen. And look, you have to take Trump at his word. The Iranians are learning this the hard way. Trump said 60 days, make a deal. Otherwise, you're going to pay a terrible price. People thought he was just being, blustering. But no, he was serious about it. And now they see what happened. So I do think that, there's obviously some factions and elements on the MAGA side who are concerned. They don't want us to be dragged into a war. We are not dragged into a war as we speak. But they're doing the right thing. And certainly Trump is always going to help Israel. He's a friend of Israel and has been very instrumental in this. So that's good.
I have been using the phrase masterful ambiguity. That's drawn from the Victorians used the phrase masterful inactivity when they wouldn't get involved and they would let people fight it. Trump's just been ambiguous, and I think he confused the Iranians as well as the left in America. Now, I do got to get a comment from you, Vic. Did you go to the military parade, the Army's 250th birthday parade?
No, I didn't get a chance to go, Hugh, but my son took a terrific video of Apache helicopters and Chinooks that happened to fly overhead directly over our house. And it was quite impressive. A colleague of mine went, and he said it was a wonderful parade. That was it was a history lesson. It began with, soldiers in colonial garb on horseback working their way up through the different wars up to the present time. And it was wonderful. And I have to say, the left seemed very disappointed that it wasn't this Kim Jong-un style military parade that they can say, look, this is fascism this is what's happening to this country. And then they have to say, oh, how disappointed it was. Poor Trump. It wasn't what either way he was going to lose. But it was a great parade and uneventful.
I thought it was wonderful. I think people who watched it thought it was wonderful. I thought it was a great recruitment poster as well for the United States Army. Vic Mattis, follow him on X at Victorino Mattis. Read him at the Free Beacon. And of course, we are waiting for Getting Hammered's return. So hurry it up, Vic. Earlier today, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke with ABC News. I want you to hear what he had to say. Cut number 4.
It's Tel Aviv. Tomorrow it's New York. I understand America first. I don't understand America dead. That's what these people want. They chant death to America. So we're doing something that is in the service of mankind, of humanity, and it's a battle of good against evil. America should and does stand with the good. That's what President Trump is doing, and I deeply appreciate his support.
John Carl joins me now. So, John, what else did he say about President Trump and how he wants the U.S. to play a role here, or did he?
Well, look, he praised President Trump over and over again in this interview. He knows that he needs the United States support, at least in terms of doing what the U.S. is doing now, which is helping Israel defend itself from those retaliatory attacks from Iran. So it was all couched in a thank you, President Trump. You've been Israel's best friend, but he made it clear that he would like to see more. He didn't come out and directly say it in those ways, but what you heard, what you played right there, I understand America first. I don't understand America dead. He is really speaking to those in the Trump movement, those in the MAGA movement who are adamantly opposed to the United States getting involved in another Middle East conflict. And as you know, Kira, there are some prominent voices, supporters, outside advisors of Donald Trump who are saying, don't get involved. The United States can't be involved. You campaigned against forever wars. People like Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk. Those are, close supporters of Donald Trump who are saying that they don't think the United States should be involved in this. And Netanyahu, it seemed to me, by using their language, I understand America first, I don't understand America dead, was speaking directly to Donald Trump and to his supporters who are critical of what Israel is doing.
Now, I just got to say, I don't believe Charlie Kirk is critical of President Trump on support for Israel. I just don't. And I'll talk to Charlie about it. I think John Carl's wrong. He should change that. But I'll ask Charlie first. Let me tell you what we both support, Charlie and I'm sure. Angel Tree. And I would like you to support Angel Tree too. For a donation of $200, you can send a child to camp. That's why we have sponsored and allowed Prison Fellowship to sponsor the Angel Tree campaign on the Salem Media Network for many, many years. Because listeners to this radio show, now watchers on the Salem News Channel, they see the kids going to camp and they think, it's a rough deal to have mom and or dad in jail and in prison and maybe not have the kind of summer that most kids have in America. And a ubiquitous experience for Americans, going to camp. Angel Tree camps are wonderful. They change lives. They change lives wonderfully. They give parent who is a single parent, because one of the other one is in jail, a week off. It gives the kid just a wonderful support system. So please head over to HughHewitt.com, find the Angel Tree banner, or simply call Angel Tree at 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. $200 sends one kid to camp. Change a child's life by changing their summer this summer. So pleased to welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Network, WPSL, the talk of the Treasure Coast, St. Port Lucia, and that is on the Atlantic coast of Florida. I love covering the Sunshine State, the free state of Florida, and welcome aboard 1590. I am always going to be here for you. I hope you enjoy the afternoon drive home with Hugh Hewitt every single day. If you're at home, you can turn me on the Salem News Channel, see what they look like and how I look and how I do it. I'm going to be on Hannity tonight as well, so you can check in there. I am so intrigued by your reactions to the Israel strikes on Iran. Now, Iran has hit a Haifa oil refinery and shut it down. That's not good. They've killed more than 20 Israelis, maybe as many as 30. It's terrible. 200 are wounded. I saw a video of President Herzog visiting them in an underground hospital, and another barrage of missiles expected tonight. But on the other side of the ledger, Iran is getting hammered. and they've never been hammered this way. To discuss this with me, I'm joined by Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, also of the podcast, The Editors, also of the podcast, The McCarthy Report. Rich, welcome. What do you make of Israel's actions over the last 96 hours?
Well, they've been extraordinary, right? This has been the last couple of years, an episode of the show Fauda. Is that how you say it? But on a much bigger scale.
Fauda.
Yeah, on a much bigger scale and real life. Yeah, so it's been extraordinary. Their intelligence dominance is something to behold. Their creativity has been completely amazing. And just one by one, they've ticked off Iran's proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Assad regime, and then to make Iran basically naked to attack by crimping their air defenses significantly prior to this, and then doing it even more over the last several days. So it's one for the history books.
You know, Rich Lowry, the term blowback has been used a lot in connection with our invasion of Iraq. I am thinking Iran is now getting blowback for the billions of dollars invested in their proxies over decades, 30 years of Ayatollah Khamenei. They always counted on their proxies checking Israel coming after Iran, and they counted on their S-300 and S-400 Russian anti-aircraft machinery, and they counted on their it's all failed. It's all turned to dust.
I remember reading Charles Krauthammer essays. My first professional job in journalism was for Charles, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, about the Hezbollah rocket buildup and how this would deter Israeli action against Iran, right? And that was obviously a totally legitimate concern. That was the purpose. They're gone. They're not there anymore. Hezbollah's not an effective fighting force anymore. So the stages have been steadily set one by one for this action, which Iran has been asking for since 1979. And it has cushioned itself with these proxies around the region. Just think about what they did to our guys in Iraq with these IEDs, horrifying, and they're finally paying a price that they should have long ago.
So, Rich Lowry, in terms of who has got the most cognitive dissonance right now, the Obama left, Ben Rhodes and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, or the MAGA right that didn't want to support Israel in this confrontation?
The MAGA right, because you're Ben Rhodes, et cetera, you just say this is what we want to avoid, this is terrible, you don't like war, and this is all Donald Trump's fault, right? If you're the MAGA right, you have to say, oh, we love Donald Trump, he's such a genius, he's so great, but he's been played by Israel, and he's betrayed MAGA by going along with this attack, which really doesn't make any sense. It's not a appropriate portrayal or an apt portrayal of Donald Trump, who is not an isolationist, right? He's not a George W. Bush Republican on foreign policy or an H.W. Bush Republican on foreign policy, but he's never been an isolationist. He's always been a Jacksonian. In this case, it's not him dropping the hammer the way Jacksonians are willing to do. It's our friend Israel.
And in fact, Ronald Reagan had a peace through strength approach, but it got a lot of Marines killed in Beirut by Hezbollah in 1983. Payback coming for a lot of Marine families who suffered the ultimate sacrifice in 1983. Rich Lowry, do you think Trump okays the American Air Force participating in the destruction of the Fordow facility, which is the one impregnable fortress that we're not sure Israel can destroy?
Don't know. I think it depends whether Israel can actually do it itself. I think that obviously would be what the administration prefers. But it would make no sense, Hugh, to go through all this now. There's been so much buildup for this for decades, and Israel expending, all these munitions and getting so close not to finish the job. And if they can't finish the job on their own, I think they're obviously going to be petitioning Trump to help them do it.
Now, when they do that, Donald Trump's got to consider the political consequences. I think after 5 months of his second term, he's dominating everything. He's going to get the one big, beautiful bill. He's dominating the immigration enforcement debate. He's got the border closed. How do you grade his first 5 months, Rich, back?
In terms of consequence, huge, right? We haven't seen a first 5 months like it. Where I ding him on his grade is mostly on the tariffs. Now they haven't been fully implemented and have been significantly scaled back. But I just think tariffs, they're not a good idea. They don't work. They're an own goal, except when it comes to China. But even China, we went too high in a way that was unsustainable, and have learned they have some leverage over us more than we'd like in the rare earth minerals. But immigration enforcement, I think, is tremendous. And just generally following through on what he said. There's nothing significant he's done they didn't talk about in the campaign.
Now, Rich, I listen to the editors whenever it comes out, and I never hear this argument, so I'm going to give it to you for the editors in the future. The argument is this. Donald Trump wanted to do one thing, which was socialize a 10% tariff on the world. I like that 10% tariff because it's the cost of keeping freedom of navigation of the seas. Is we've got to rebuild our naval presence. We got to rebuild our military presence in an expedited way. So I view that as a tax on the world which hasn't been carrying their load. Donald Trump socialized. No one's even talking about that. They're talking about China, and then Donald Trump okayed the Nippon Steel deal. He really is quite flexible.
Totally flexible, right? And there are upsides and downsides to that. But Hugh, I wrote a column about 2 or 3 months ago after Liberation Day, whenever that was, when his approval rating took a dip down. I was like, here we are. He did this to himself, own goal. He's in a different phase of his presidency now. The vibe is gone. And then lo and behold, he scales some of them back and dances around, and his approval rating has ticked back up. Now, it's not, he's still below water, but not below water by much, and popular in terms of his where he's been historically, and pretty popular for just a U.S. president these days. None of whom are going to be in 60s or 70% again, unless there's some terrible crisis. So that is a product of his flexibility.
Rich, last question. That was the second soccer analogy I've heard today. Earlier today, I talked to Amit Segal, who's basically the Bret Baier of Israel. And Amit said, I'm going to use a soccer analogy, I'm sorry. It's 92 minutes into the match. Israel's up 5-0 on Iran. All Iran can do is try and injure our players now. And I think that made sense to me, but that gives Israel the option to broaden the scope of their attack. They've been very deliberate not to attack civilian economic structures, but I think Kharg Island and their one big port is going to be on the list if they keep killing Israelis. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. So Iran is just in a box. And look, you never know how these conflicts are going to turn out. There could be surprises or unexpected turns. But what they have basically is ballistic missiles to attack civilians in Israel. And those are dangerous. You can't eliminate all of them. Israel's done a great job minimizing that threat, but it's still there. But the more Israeli civilians die in these indiscriminate rocket attacks, the more likely the Israelis are to go wider.
Well, I cannot wait to hear the editors tomorrow, Rich Lowry. Everyone should be following and liking and subscribing the editors over at your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget the McCarthy Report as well. My phone number is 1-800-520-1234. 1-800-520-1234. If you're a new affiliate, 1590 WPSL, we'll give you priority if you want to call in. The talk of the Treasure Coast down there in St. Port Lucia. But wherever you are in the country, 1-800-520-1234. Time for you to speak your mind about this war. As I said to Rich, as I said to Vic Mattis, there are periods of extraordinary consequence. I've been doing the news since 1990, and I can only remember 3 or 4 other stories of this significant. This really resets the axis of evil, which Iran has been a part of for a long time. And the Ayatollah Khomeini was the equal of any evil villain in the world, is sitting there befuddled and watching everything he tried to do over 30 years of being the second dictator of Iran after the Ayatollah Khomeini, turning to dust and ashes, and I am glad. 1-800-520-1234. What do you think? Open the lines, Harley. I rarely take phone calls on my radio show and my Salem News Channel show, but I want to talk to a few people today to find out how they react to the Israeli attack on Iran. It's round 3 in the Iran-Israel war, and it's a round that may be a knockout round. Iran may be just literally knocked out. I don't think anyone saw this coming, at no small cost to Israel, but with an enormous return. Paul in Philadelphia, my phone number is 1-800-520-1234 if you'd like to comment on this. Hi, Paul, what do you think?
Good afternoon. I think the time for talk is over. Now's the time for deeds. I view as any negotiation with the Ayatollahs as pretty much asking for a Munich agreement.
Well, I think whatever conversation we have with the Ayatollahs has fundamentally changed and will be reset, because where they had some leverage until 3 days ago, they ain't got any leverage anymore. They're on their back. They got to ask for a way out, a face-saving way to stop, and that the only way they can do that is by demilitarizing their nuclear program. If they're willing to surrender, would you take their surrender?
I would have to see their centrifuges destroyed, every single one of them.
And their enriched uranium turned over to a third party, and any secret lab of which we are aware, and I'm sure we're aware of them, where they're working on the weaponization, that destroyed as well. I think there's a lot of things that we can demand before we get involved, but I really do think they're on their heels. And they've got a pretty significant army, but they can't really march it. They don't have a border with Israel. They can't march it through Jordan. They're screwed. And they just fundamentally miscalculated the last 46 years. Their sunk costs are so enormous, I don't know how they get out of it. Thank you, Paul. Jim is calling from Louisville. Hey, Jim. 1-800-520-1234 connects the audience to me, Hugh Hewitt. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Hugh. How are you?
Great.
I wanted to say that I think that probably President Trump and Netanyahu get along a lot better than we might think. I think that President Trump has learned how to play this game and play it very well. I think that Israel is going to have to deliver that knockout punch, because I can't see any kind of negotiation between the United States or Israel that we could trust would be lived up to by Iran. They've proven over and over again that they cannot be trusted.
Well, Jim, I agree with that, but
I
think the Germans couldn't be trusted in World War II. The Japanese couldn't be trusted in World War II. But there are ways to surrender.
Well, I don't know that I think they're so fanatical at their leadership, I'm not sure that they know how to surrender.
Well, that's interesting. President Trump said a couple of times that some people in the Iranian government wanted to negotiate, but they didn't know how. They didn't know how to go about it. And I think that's because of those religious fanatics. But the religious fanatics might end up with a bullet in their head pretty soon, because the regular Iranian army has got to be wondering, how much of this can we take? When they've got air superiority. I was just in France. I was in Normandy, and I didn't go to the beaches. I've been there before, but I was in Rouen, which was destroyed in World War II. When you have air superiority, there is no sustaining a country's military. If you can't shoot down the other teams, the other combatants' air force, you don't have any ability to fight. And right now, the Iranians are naked. And I mean, we heard that said for months, but this is really, really naked. So, Jim, there are ways to surrender. We'll see if they... Go ahead.
I think that Israel could actually deliver that knockout for sure. I think they have the capability and want to do that. I just think that the big problem is the talking heads in America, legacy news and that kind of stuff that just keep dirtying the water.
They're irrelevant. I watched Margaret Brennan got taken apart by Tom Cotton yesterday, and legacy media is dead. I don't know if I'm talking about this with Sean Hannity tonight, but legacy media is dead, and they're very dead because they never understood Israel, and they've covered Israel as being a bad state when it's a good state, and the American people know better. Jim, thank you. Barry in Orlando, what do you have to say, Barry?
Evening, Grace Hugh. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump and Netanyahu are going for the knockout punch in order to change the regime. Never had a better chance than now. So I see them both wanting to go for it all.
There is you've got evidence for that. I want to play for you a clip of President Trump in Canada today, and it's not hopeful for them. I think it's the third Trump cut. If you've got it there, Harley.
Have you heard any
about
signals or seen any messages from intermediaries that Iran wishes to de-escalate the conflict?
Yeah.
What have you heard? What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
Barry, I don't think he's in a hurry to bail out Iran. Do you?
No, sir, not at all. I'm glad to hear that Mr. Trump and I are on the same wavelength.
I think you are. Thank you for the call. Anthony in Illinois. Hi, Anthony.
Yep, something that makes the most sense to me that I haven't heard on the Call Me Back podcast or the commentary podcast or any of the FDD commentators is that maybe Trump's just waiting to use the B-2s until after the Israelis have expended all of his Iran's ballistic missile capacities and they can't be used against U.S. forces in retaliation.
Oh, you know what? That's possible. If Iran retaliated against an American base like al-Assad, they once directed ballistic missiles at al-Assad and did some damage to some soldiers, some TBI, some collapsed building, and then we called it off. They didn't want to escalate with us. That would be the end of the regime. I mean, they wouldn't have a chance. If they did that, that would be... The one thing I think everyone in the world knows, if you harm an American soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, Donald Trump will make you pay. And pay a lot.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But if the Israelis are willing to take, the hits with the ballistic, I just don't think, if from Trump's perspective, why risk the hit on U.S. personnel if the Israelis will take the hits and expend the forces,
Yeah. Well, there are also intermediate steps, such as lending them the B-2 or trying to adapt the massive ordnance bombs. They're not nuclear, they're just big. They're bunker busters, trying to adapt that to whatever Israel can deliver. We shall see. Israel has been very inventive in this war thus far. I'm going to take more of your phone calls at 1-800-520-1234. That's 1-800-520-1234. If you missed my conversations with Amit Segal or Ambassador Oren from Israel earlier today, they are now at my YouTube channel, Hugh Hewitt YouTube. I'd love it if you like and subscribe. And of course, my podcast will be back up today, Highly Concentrated Hugh, available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Hugh Hewitt in my new studio, all of which was sourced by Dwayne. And Dwayne is, of course, one of the reasons we have the sponsorship of myphdweightloss.com, 864-644-1900. That's
864-644-1900.
So on Father's Day, yesterday, did you break your My PhD weight loss plan, or did you stick to it?
I actually stuck to it. Because I got to pick and choose what we ate. So we had a kind of a proteiny breakfast, eggs and sausage, and for dinner we had what do we have? We had steak.
Well, I thought you were going to go to Disneyland yesterday.
No.
On Father's Day, you didn't pick Disneyland?
No, actually, I'm going to the park tonight because the miscellaneous random person female is going to give me a trip around the Mark Twain from the wheelhouse up on top, which nobody gets to go do. So I get the exclusive treatment, and then we will probably head to a dinner on the way afterwards.
Unless Disney heard you just say that, in which case you'll be intercepted on the way there to the...
it's entirely possible, but I will probably be camouflaged.
MyPhDweightloss.com, 864-644-1900. Do not take, as the president says, the fat shot. Use My PhD Weight Loss. Take 50 pounds off like Dwayne did and keep it off for 2.5 years?
Something like that.
Yeah. All right, now let's go back to the phone. David in Detroit. How are you, David?
Pretty good, Hugh. Hey, I have a question for you. Do you think it's possible that instead of, the U.S. dropping one of those 800-pound bombs or whatever it is that we don't want to do,
You dropped out on me, David.
Oh, can't the
Let's go to Fred in Atlanta.
attack?
Oh, you're back. David, you dropped out. Someone tried to call your cell phone and you dropped out. What were you saying?
I'm wondering what you think if the Israelis could just attack the Fordham or whatever that place is called and try to go in through the way the employees go in. I mean, how do you get down underneath there?
Well, look, I have to assume that whatever they've got left in terms of, and they got a lot of them. They got a lot of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They got a lot of Quds forces, and they have the regular Iranian army. And I'm sure that they are all around. It's like protecting Hitler's bunker. And they've got to protect that. The way to get to it is from the air. Now, given that it's the Israelis, they probably have a donkey robot full of highly explosives that will wander up there to the top of the mountain and detonate. But it's a very difficult task set. They've been thinking at it, and they've pulled off some amazing stuff, so I never say never. David, thank you. Fred in Alabama, what do you say, Fred? Alhambra, not Alabama. Hey, Fred in Atlanta. I'm sorry, I can't see it. Fred, you there? Nope, Fred's gone. Let's go to Daniel in Minnesota. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Hugh. Hugh, how you doing? Listen, welcome back. I'm of the opinion that even though it's not the same high level as the highest level magnitude to do this, I think that we should be delivering justice to the Ayatollahs. I mean, you know, they're the heads of the snake. I'd like to see them all dead.
Well, the downside to that is if Ayatollah Khamenei is running the show, he's 86 years old and he's a moron. And fanatics don't make good wartime leaders. And obviously he's stunned. There are reports that Amit Segal relayed earlier. They've already effectively removed him from the decision chain because he's making bad decisions. I'm not sure we want to kill anyone who's brought Iran to this complete self-own. They really did allow themselves to believe their own rhetoric and believe that Israel would be deterred. Sally, thank you, Daniel. Sally, North Carolina. Hi, Sally.
Hello there. Can you hear me, Hugh?
I can.
Okay. I just wanted to call in and say that when I listened to Benjamin Netanyahu's speech the other night, and when he looked at the Iranis right in the face and said, "We are with you," I just hope that we as Americans are praying for the Irani people. I was able to visit there several times before 1979, and it was a glorious place. The people are marvelous, and my prayer is that Iran will be able to one day join the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, come back and become part of the West again. What the Prime Minister said at the end of the speech yesterday in English was, rise up and be free. And I think,
absolutely.
And there are lots of Persian Americans who are praying for just that. The Shah can go back as a constitutional monarch. There are lots of things that could happen. Fingers are crossed all around. For our new listeners down in the talk of the Treasure Coast, 1590 WPSL on Port St. Lucia, Yoni has been a caller to my show for 25 years it's been on. And he is a veteran of the Israeli Defense Forces. He lives now in the United States, goes back and forth. Yoni, congratulations. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to let you in on a little glimpse of what life is like. While I was on hold during the break, the alarm on my phone went off because ballistic missiles are flying toward my moshav. So my children and grandchildren are potentially in harm, so you have that stress.
Shouldn't you be heading to the shelter?
Well, my one son, his house is far enough away from the shelter, and he's got 3 small kids, so he took a backhoe and dug a 2-meter deep hole in the backyard, and they're sleeping in it. And that way the kids don't have to get woke up, and as long as they don't get a hit within, let's say, 75, 100 meters, they'll be all right.
So are you happy with the Netanyahu government's prosecution of the war?
I'm happy with the IDF's prosecution of the war. Bibi, chose the time to do it for political reasons. And as Michael Oren pointed out, in 20 years, nobody's going to remember that this week the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox parties, were going to leave the government. And that's why it was chosen for, now to do the war. The war needed to be done. We had no choice. I'm ecstatic at the outcome of the war. If somebody would have asked me to predict day 4 going into day 5 of an all-out war with Iran, what the civilian casualty rate in Israel would be, I would probably say 5 to 10 times what we are suffering.
Well, I did hear Amit Segal say the estimates from the IDF were between 500 and 10,000.
Yeah, well, that's a big estimate. My guess would have been 5,000 dead. That they were, I knew they were going to target our cities, and I knew we were going to pay a big price. But Israeli technology and ingenuity in how we build our houses since 1992, up until yesterday, not a single person that was in their mamad, their room in their house that they had to build their own private bomb shelter, or in a makat, the community bomb shelter for an apartment building. Nobody had been even wounded as of yesterday, and then we had a direct hit that hit right on the room that was sheltering people. And, they're firing 1,000-pound warheads. I talked to my kid, and he goes, look, it is what it is. It's not, I've been under fire before, and I said, listen, you idiot. You've been under fire from Katyusha rockets, which are 122 millimeters, which probably hold somewhere around 20 pounds of explosives, I'm guessing, I don't know, or 82 millimeter mortars or an RPG. I said, these that they're firing at us so far have got 1,000 pounds, and they still have 2,000 pounders unless the Israeli Air Force has gotten rid of them. So they could up the damage that they're doing to us. But you know what? It's a glorious time. I've seen things that are absolutely unbelievable in both countries. As you know, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I'm going to disappoint many Orthodox Jews. I had the Israeli news on streaming over the Jewish Sabbath this last week because I can't cope with not knowing. And so we were watching, and on Friday night, there was a party in Tehran, and these people were celebrating something, and I didn't understand what they were celebrating. And it was a candlelit dinner table, and people were at the window, and every time there was a flash, and then a few seconds later, the noise of an explosion, these people jumped up and down and cheered.
I don't know if you've seen the reports that the Iranian resistance are doing car bombs.
Well, I'm not sure it's the Iranian resistance / a bunch of guys that came from Israel, but yeah, there are car bombs, and there are nuclear scientists that have been gunned down in the Capitol. We're playing for keeps.
Playing to win, and I hope they have something for Fordo ready, and I hope we help you do that. Yoni, I got to move on, but thank you, friend. Keep in touch this week and next. I love your perspective as we go forward. I want to tell everyone about Angel Tree. They're a longtime sponsor, many, many years of my program, because they open summer camps every single year for the children of prisoners. And there are tens of thousands of them. And they try and serve every kid who wants to go to camps. Not always possible, takes $200 per kid, but they do an amazing job. Listen to Betsy Wright, who's with Angel Tree, about the importance of your contribution, especially if you would be a first-time donor.
We have so many kids out there impacted by incarceration, and we have so many willing camp partners across the United States. We have camp partners in 49 states this year, and that's the first time we've been in that many states. So we're hoping to get so many kids to camp this summer. And your listeners have been so faithful over the years to give, and we couldn't do it without your partnership and those faithful listeners who give every year. And maybe this year we'll have a lot of new first-time donors for this. And we know that God will bless that gift and multiply that gift.
It will. He will. And a full scholarship is $200. That sends another kid to camp. If you can't afford that, if you can only afford $100, thank you. If you can do $50, thank you. You are instrumental in changing these children's lives. The Angel Tree banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call 888-206-2764, 888-206-2764. BT in Portland, you got 1 minute, BT.
Yes, what we've seen the last 5 days is a military that does not get bogged down with pronouns and letting soldiers wear high heels and all that other nonsense. So it's a lesson there for everybody.
It's a lethal. Don't screw with the IDF. Just don't do it. Hey, BT, thank you. I'm coming right back, America. Don't go anywhere. I'll take a couple more calls. Brent, Phil, don't go anywhere. I'll make sure I get to you. But I do want you to remember, I have a YouTube channel. Go over there, like and subscribe it. And if you missed the Amit Segal interview or the Dr. Michael Oren interview, they're already posted. Go there and listen to those. I'm Hugh Hewitt in the brand new Relief Factor studio. Been tricked up while I was gone with the Hillsdale cruise. But I want to remind you of that Relief Factor works. It really does. That's why Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I did 9 miles on Thursday in London, 10 miles on Friday in London, and then I did 4 this morning. Yesterday was a recuperation day, and I'm feeling great because Relief Factor really does work. Now, when you do your starter pack, you take it 3 times a day until you feel better than you do 2 or even 1. But Relief Factor is simply what you can go to GNC and get, but then screw it up. It's Icarian and curcumin, resveratrol, omega, the 4 natural supplements. The only one I've ever taken, right? 20 years I've been taking it. Nothing except Relief Factor. Why? Because it works. I turn down other people. I say no, thank you very much. But I don't need the business, and I only take 1 supplement. I'm not a big supplement guy. I get my exercise the old-fashioned way, moving, and Relief Factor takes care of a little stiffness here and there. Today's a little bit odd because I'm in a new chair, and it's a little bit odd on the upper back, but Relief Factor will take care of that. And I will see you tonight on Hannity. I want to remind you about that. Let me go back to the phone. You call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. You want to get a 3-week starter pack for $19.95. 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Or go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Find that special starter offer, $19.95 for a 3-week supply. Brent in L.A., what do you say, Brent?
Miraculous Magadittos, Hugh. Our righteous and courageous President Trump's blessings to the Jewish people will definitely bring back God's big, beautiful, and abundant blessings to America. God bless President Trump for helping to defeat the devil's thermonuclear final solution to the Jews in Israel and to America as well.
All right, well said, Brent. Thank you. Phil in Alhambra. Last call of the day, Phil. What do you say?
Total and complete surrender like after World War II.
Well, what if they blew up all their stuff? Because total and complete surrender isn't going to happen because they haven't been defeated in the way, and we don't want to burn Iran to the ground. 90% of Iran hates the regime.
No, I understand that. Did you hear about the U.S. refueling being pre-positioned to Europe?
No.
I think that's a precursor to our helping out with Fardo.
Well, I hope you are right, Phil, but I also don't. Unconditional surrender didn't pass my lips because the IRGC's got some dead enders, and I don't want to have to burn Tehran down. I don't think we want to do that. We want the Iranian people to be free. Like Benjamin Netanyahu said, rise up and be free. Thank you, Phil. Hey, I want to thank Adam and Harley and Dwayne, and I want to thank Dwayne for guest hosting, Mark Davis for guest hosting, Kurt Schlichter for guest hosting, Ed Morrissey. They were all fabulous. You're all fabulous. Thanks to the techs who did this, Ben. If you're out there, thank you for setting up the new studio. I'll see you tonight on Hannity, and I'll be back tomorrow right at the regular time on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.